I don't think I'm ever taking off the mask. Maybe I'll eat my words on that. But yeah, this is here to stay. And yeah, you can go ahead and say my legal name. I'm not too worried about it.
I feel like it should be like a cut scene from like, take off that mask, huh? Just show us who you are, huh?
Hold on. I got a few other underneath this, so you got to take out the layers.
There you go. There you go. Welcome back to Classic Firearms, guys. On the podcast here. Great. We've got some pretty cool stuff going on, but we're not going to do an admin reveal because that's not us. But welcome to the podcast. PSR, man.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it,
No
man.
problem, brother. Print, shoot, repeat for you guys who don't know. If you haven't seen this man, I'm pretty sure you've seen his mask at least one time before.
Maybe.
And his content is so, first of all, informative, creative, and just funny, man. I mean, I love what you do. You bring like this whole other aspect to the 2A community. It implies to everyone who watches. So to me, I grab something out of it. To the guy who's like, oh, I'm not really into firearms yet, but you make it like palatable for the common man. And it's just you have found your niche, and I appreciate that, number one. So thanks for being on.
Thank you. Those are very kind words. And I'm very honored to be here. I remember watching classic firearms videos when I was kind of just getting into this space, and so it's kind of surreal to be here. It's really cool. So thank you so much.
Awesome, man. We appreciate it. And of course, for folks who don't know, PSR, like, how did you get started? Like, what was your motivation? And I feel like I'm sitting in front of Kylo Ren right now.
Oh man. Well, it's all started back kind of actually during COVID. I had a shotgun before that, but I think similar to a lot of people during COVID, there was like a large spike, as probably you guys know, that during that time where people were like, things are a little weird right now. I kind of want to just make sure that I lock down the self-protection, check that off the box, and maybe people that didn't have a firearm before got and then people that had a couple got more or whatever, and got more into it. And that was me, more or less. I had a weird situation with my neighbor. I've explained this before on some other podcasts, but kind of just to sum it up, there was some very kind of suspect stuff that happened with a neighbor of mine, and it's kind of semi-threatening things that this guy said, and I was just like, I don't think he's violent. He's definitely going through a mental health crisis, but I was like, I'm not gonna just get caught without it in the worst time, right? So I just, I had just had a shotgun. It was like a literal skeet shooting thing. I was like into it back when I was living in Vermont, just doing some skeet shooting, I called it the Joe Biden special. It was like a literal 28-inch like skeet shooting shotgun. So I was like, that's not going to really cut it. So I got a couple, one fairly, decent gun purchase was a Glock 17 just to have handgun by the bedside, whatnot. And then I got a kind of comical sort of cringe AR before I really knew about all of the stuff that goes into, like ballistics and things. I got a 7.5-inch Springfield Saint 5.56, just an absolute flashbang. Just, just completely blowing one's eardrums out if ever needed to fire indoors.
Tinnitus giver.
Yes, and jaw loosener.
There you go.
So I got that and quickly realized, wow, this thing is like very loud and spits fireballs. Right. Cool at the range, but not really great for any kind of self-defense, whatever, home defense situation. So I started to mess with the guns a little bit and just took them apart for cleaning and stuff, and I just found some part of my brain thought it was pretty fun and interesting. And so I learned later on, and kind of in the gun, rabbit hole, that you could 3D print them. And I was like, whoa, no way. I kind of didn't really believe it at that time, because it was kind of like, the 2020-ish, 1920-ish period where it was still very new in terms of like the public's, general public's like perception of what 3D printed guns were. They thought, okay, it's just this piece of plastic that blows up in your hand if you fire more than one shot or one shot and it blows up. I think a lot of people saw the Liberator pistol, which was I think 2013 was like the first time it was successfully, fired. Cody Wilson.
All Defense Review.
Yeah. Defense distributors.
Yeah.
So I I'd heard about that when that went, when that happened back in 2013. But then it was kind of like, I don't know. I just became this. I didn't really think much of it until I saw this documentary by Popular Front about Jay Stark, who was this designer and tester of the FGC-9, which was like a pretty big moment for 3D printed guns because it was a all DIY firearm, a PCC, used Glock mags, blowback, but the crucial thing was that it didn't take any firearms parts. So theoretically, in a place where it was heavily restricted, or you had a government that was super against anyone owning, self-defense tools like firearms.
Right.
One could assemble it with a 3D printer and just basically parts that you could order legally in, for example, Europe or other countries in Asia, places that are really, really restrictive on firearms. So that was a huge moment. And so I was watching this documentary, and it's about this guy, Jay Stark, the designer, and he was testing these in his basement and had it's super illegal in Europe. Right?
Absolutely.
And no one knew where he was living, and it just was this cool. And he had a philosophy where it was like, we believe everyone should have the right to be able to defend themselves, and especially from tyrannical governments. Like, for example, right now, what's going on in Myanmar and Burma,
right,
where you have the Tatmadaw, super restrictive, tyrannical. I mean, some could say genocidal in terms of their government, and then you have people printing FGC-9s to defend themselves, and it's pretty inspiring, pretty neat, and a very big step forward for DIY defense, right?
Right.
And so I got really interested in it based on that, and then I was like, okay, how can I do this myself? So I got a 3D printer. I got like a basic, $200-ish. $150 to $200 3D printer back then. It was an Ender 3 V2, and I just dove right into it. I thought it was really neat, and I started printing some things first before I printed a gun, because it's a little. You want to make sure your settings are dialed in. Right. Then, you might actually have a moment where you shoot one shot and it disassembles rapidly, as they say.
I like that. Disassembles quick.
Yes.
Takedown's a dream.
Yeah. No problem. Just one round. But yeah, so I started. I printed a Glock frame. It was a Glock frame. So back then, it was a little bit the rail design. So, for example, like I have a Glock here.
Right.
I'll just check that it's clear.
Appreciate that.
Into the wall. Yeah. So like a Glock, for example, is for this design. There's a rail in the front. Because, as you know, Glock frames, they have the rails embedded in them, inside the plastic from the factory. And so with the 3D printed ones, you needed to do a rail on the front that would mimic that Glock rail, essentially, right? So this is a Gen 3 Glock design. And so before these rails, which my channel sponsor, by the way, I'll give them a little plug, Aves Engineering, make the rails for these. So before they were kind of prominent in making these rail kits readily accessible, there was some kind of more crude rail designs, but it was easier actually to acquire a set of polymer 80 rails.
Right.
Some people, you could just buy the rails by themselves on eBay, or you could get them with a kit back when it, there's like $100-something bucks.
Right.
RIP polymer 80, by the way. But, and I tried to tell them numerous times, you should just sell the rails by themselves, but they didn't want to do that. But anyway, the design was incorporating the polymer 80 rails for their, I don't know, it's like the Glock 19 essentially rail size. So it was super easy. You just took the polymer 80 rails, put them in after you printed it, and I remember just like kind of hammering stuff in. The printing settings, while they were strong, it maybe wasn't the most dialed in that I could have had it in, but I got it together. And I remember like the first time I put the slide on, and I was just like, I got the slide on, I put it on, and I was just like, racked it back, and it racked, and I was just like, oh my God, I just made a 3D printed gun.
FBI, open up!
Yeah, exactly right. And unfortunately, it's still the perception about 3D printing guns is that it's somehow illegal. obviously, state, local laws and whatnot, it varies, but
Right.
for the most part, it's completely legal to if you're able to possess a firearm, you're able to make one.
And that's great. I mean, let's talk about that. And I want to dial this in. I don't want to coin this phrase, but you really kind of like foreshadowed and forecast and brought to light, and I hate to say this, the cyber gun. Yeah. Because if you say cyber gun, I'm not saying like, oh, Elon, don't come for me. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about like something that you have created in a digital space and then put it into practical application form. So to me, first of all, brother, appreciate you. You're an engineer. So,
well, so I will be very clear that I am not I'm not a designer of
right.
these. I think it does take a little bit of like technical know-how to,
right.
I guess, to just like be able to have the patience to print them. But for the most part, I have no engineering background, and I don't design any of these, and I don't take credit for designing any of them. So, these are all actually designed by one dude. A lot of my favorite designs. He goes by Ivan the Troll or Navigo Boom on Twitter and on Instagram and stuff.
Okay.
He's responsible for designing the guns that we have here, which is the Plastikov V4. This is a version of his Glock pistol design.
Okay.
It's a remix that's kind of like a 8-bit style.
Okay.
And then this is the KF5, which is a 3D printed MP5.
MP5, yeah.
And so I won't take credit for the design of them. Yeah. However, the great thing about the 3D printing stuff is that there's all these amazing creative people that are into it, that are making these designs and taking the architecture and modifying it and making it their own. And so it does feel very cyberpunk, very futuristic,
very,
to be able to just hit a button and then
beep, there, cycle time, you're good.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason I got so engaged and interested in it.
Right.
Yeah, because you just got all these possibilities right at your fingertips.
So that's pretty cool. And if you think about that, one could be at home. You could just be searching on whatever you want to use the search on and say, hey, I want to make this design. Cool. To me, it would behoove these manufacturers to then chime in to that market. You have no clue how you could get someone who they're not an engineer, they're not a designer, but yet they have a great idea in mind. So I would love to see more manufacturers partner up with these printers. Like, I mean, think about you and how you do these things. Hey, this is what I do, this is what we do, and put it into practical application. We're not saying we've got to go after like a huge military contract, but something that the common person would want. And that's kind of cool to me. So it's a whole new avenue of this uncharted territory given.
Totally.
So.
And it's really putting the power in people's hands to do what they want and make the gun that they want, which is really neat. And I think it's actually also inspiring a bunch of people who might just be tinkerers and whatnot, and getting into doing CAD design, which is, what you need to do to design one of these.
Right.
You kind of have to know what your at least basic, tools when it comes to just like whether it's Fusion 360 or other CAD programs.
Right.
Those skills that you can learn just by teaching yourself can be applied to jobs where you can make 6 figures and be doing what you love, designing stuff and engineering stuff without even having to go to school for it. So I think this is also just inspiring a generation of younger people who are really into tinkering, making their own stuff, and potentially leading to careers. So it's cool.
Correct. And we always talk about like a job that we can create out of nothing. It's not a job anymore. It's a passion. So then it doesn't feel like you're going to work. So like, first of all, thankful for what I do here, that's great. And I also still have my own career that I work for the DoD in as well. So that's a whole nother aspect. So I'm in this realm 24/7. So that's pretty cool. And man, look at what you have here. I mean, you got some crazy stuff. I mean, let's talk about this MP5, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, this is the KF5, like I said, designed by Navigo Boom, Ivan the Troll. It's a roller delayed. So the thing with and I was explaining this a little bit earlier when talking about the FGC9.
Yeah.
The thing with a lot of these 3D printed guns is they do require firearm parts.
Right.
Like you need, for example, for this MP5, it doesn't just like look like an MP5 and use MP5 mags. It actually is roller delayed.
Right.
And uses an MP5 barrel. We've got the tri-lug and uses the mags and whatnot. And you can slap it, of course, which is my favorite. Do the HK slap, yeah. And so the neat thing about this And I had James Reeves come to do a little video with me where we shot a bunch of these guns, and he loved the actual shooting experience of it, but he was more kind of like a little bit like, I don't necessarily see the point because, you still have to buy the kit and everything, which is pretty expensive in the end of the day. It is a little less than a MP5. Right. So like if you're going to buy a clone, for example, a POF or an MKE or something like that, it's going to run you about $1,000, give or take, Right. But this is a little less than that, maybe $100, $200 less than that. But the cool thing about this is you do get a bunch of improvements. So you get really improved trigger because it uses an AR trigger, right? And you also get a really light package out of the box because it's plastic, right?
I mean, that thing weighs what, 5.5 pounds, if that?
Yeah. With the can on it, I think it's around like 6 pounds.
6 pounds.
Maybe less. But without the can on it, I think it's sub 5 pounds. Yeah. So it's super light, and so you get that benefit, and it's just really cool to be able to make your own stuff. And this gun is just like so smooth and nice to shoot.
Right.
And there is another version that has a little bit more of a more tactical handguard. This is kind of like the classic kind of MP5 looking handguard, but like it also offers, for example, the rail space where a normal MP5 you'd have to adapt a BNT rail or something to it. Right. You got the picked rail in the back, so you can put a brace, which we have here on here. So yeah, there's lots of little possibilities with this guy. One of my favorite designs for sure, if not my favorite. I already explained, the Glock's pretty much just the same as the Glock. Pretty simple. Great basic kind of starter kind of build if you're going to get into it, is doing a Glock. Okay. This one's a little bit more complex. This is the Plastikov. So this is
the name.
yes. So this is an AKM receiver that is entirely, more or less entirely plastic. It's got a monolithic design, which is different from any other AK, really. It's more, I guess, more similar to like what a milled AK would be in terms of just like the shape, but it's monolithic, so that this top piece and this bottom piece right here, this is all one thing. As you can see on the back, we've got the ejector here, which is just a piece of bent sheet metal. But this also, in the end, is not going to be, this is a Draco. This is actually a Draco parts kit. This, if you can headspace your own kit, which some people can, some people have the tools for that. Okay. It's more like, $400 or $500, if that, maybe a little less. But if you can buy it, they sell, MAF Corp sells the full kit that's headspaced, right? And that's a little bit more. That's more like $600-$700. So you're approaching kind of like a stock Draco territory in terms of the price. So it's not really much of an advantage in terms of the price, but like the MP5, you do get some benefits to it, other than the fact that you made it, and that's cool. You do get a rail on the top, and you do get a rail in the back, so you can put optics, which AK is hard to do that, right? And so that kind of makes it easy, and it just, you can put what trigger you want in it, obviously, just like any other AK. But the cool thing about this is it's actually a lot easier to install, because the way that it's designed is it's got this trigger pack in it, so the trigger pack is removable. So putting the trigger in is actually way more simple than reaching into the receiver on an AK can be a little bit. Right. I mean, if you've done it before, it's not too difficult, but this makes it super easy. And so this design's neat, and it's also got your kind of Galil style safety here. Okay. Which is kind of neat. And it uses a trigger guard from an AK, so you still do the rock and lock with the mags, etc. Okay. And so that's the Plastikov Draco edition.
I love the name.
And it definitely barks.
Okay. Yeah. So Plastikov, that's what's up, man. And so you're handling all these pressures with all these material sciences going on. That's great. What is the next venture to step up?
I mean, well, these are all made with very inexpensive polylactic acid. The material, PLA. Okay. PLA. So it is the standard material, go-to material for pretty much any like trinket, maker that makes like little miniatures and stuff. Okay. That's kind of what people print with that are just getting into printing, and it's by far the cheapest, and it's the easiest to print. So that's why this material is great, and it's definitely strong enough to withhold the pressures of, for example, the 7.6239. Yeah. I mean, the key is, and I stress this too, is that you're not going to make a reliable and safe firearm with just plastic.
Right.
I'm sorry, it's
Right.
just not going to happen. We're not there yet.
Right.
You need steel. It's an explosion.
Right. And
yeah.
And let's stop the perpetual like, oh, one of those Glocks, like the porcelain thing, you can go through metal detectors and all this stuff. Everybody's seen that. What is it? Die Hard 2.
Yeah.
Like, it can go through everything. It's undetectable. Like, no, bro, it's not like that.
It's kind of like anti-gunner FUD in a way.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's a firearm. You need a barrel. You need pressure bearing components. So.
Right.
All the trunnion and everything, it's a barrel and everything is all standard Draco and whatnot. But you get to build it yourself. And the cool thing about the actual plastic off that makes it, I think, kind of attractive for people who are into building AKs,
Right.
is you don't need any special tools. So when you're building an AK, you need to
Right.
be able to press the rivets and all that
Right.
stuff, and that can be its own art in itself for
Right.
sure. Whereas this, I had no tools, no expensive tools. I just literally put it together in my living room because I had the Headspace kit. So as long as it's Headspace,
It's
which
good to go.
you can get those, no problem. You can get them from MAF, you can get them from Arms of America, other places. As long as you get the Headspace, you don't have to do any crazy stamping or any crazy rivet stuff or anything like that. So that's really neat.
That's
and
what's up.
yeah, so some people that are into guns that are are also like haters of 3D printing, which I don't know why you would be, but there's some people out there that are like, yeah, it's a piece of junk, I won't deal with it. That's their own thing.
That's crazy.
They can have that opinion, which is fine, but there are things about the 3D printed space, I think, that are really beneficial. And obviously it's not going to be as durable as a normal Draco. It's literally plastic, but you can also print another one.
Right. And to me, it kind of brings up this phrase like freedom on demand.
Yeah.
So if you've got the time, you've got the space, you've got the know-how and ingenuity, you can just make that happen. And so under no circumstance can you ever be shut down in that aspect.
Yeah.
So that to me is like worth two in the bush. So shout out to that for real, because, repeal every NFA law and any bad stuff like that, because we don't like that. But it's not even a workaround. It's just your God-given right to do such.
Yes.
And that to me is really awesome, and you've really capitalized on showcasing that.
Thank you.
Are you going to move into more suppressor stuff? I know you got some stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would be really neat to have the NFA repealed so that we could just make our
Right.
suppressors with that, just like we make firearms, where it's just there's no government permission. Obviously, free men, free women, free people don't ask permission.
There you go.
And I don't know if I didn't have such a public facing persona, who knows what I'd be cooking up in my 3D printer. But
What are you, the feds?
Oh, did you say you work for DOD? I don't know, man.
Yeah, I'm just good. It's good. I'm not clocked in today.
Okay.
It's all good.
But yeah, I have with help of, so I work with a SOT that makes some stuff.
Okay.
And so they've come out and demoed that stuff, that's 3D printed.
Okay.
And I've, shot some videos on that stuff, which is their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that stuff is rapidly, PLA suppressor. So like this material, which
Right.
is actually the biggest downfall of this material, PLA or
Okay.
PLA plus, is its temperature resistance. So it's not very temperature resistant.
Okay.
So if this had a switch on it, I mean, I actually have done multiple mags with a switch, not my switch, but a legal one, of course, that the SOT had with a 3D printed Glock 17L. We ran out of mags. It was like 12 to 15 mags in a row.
Wow.
And it held up in PLA. It was probably a little warped at the end of it, but this will warp. Like if you leave this in a hot car, like a car
Right.
during a hot day,
Right.
it will deform in some places. Like my FGC9, I left it in the car, and the spring was just enough spring pressure and enough of that little warping, kind of
Okay.
the mag release just kind of got a little bent.
Okay.
Stuff like that. I mean, a hot car on a hot day
Yeah.
can get really hot.
Absolutely.
Obviously. So as long as you're not doing that and leaving it out there in your car or whatever, these things will last as long as you need them to last. Honestly, I have some that, I have VZ61 as, years. So I think the next, step in terms of material and becoming more accessible, I mean, we're seeing it now with more of these printers that are enclosed, being able to print filled nylon. So like a Glock frame is glass filled nylon, just from Glock, and you can get similar style filaments where it's filled with basically little pieces of glass which help the nylon bond and
stabilize.
Keep it.
Yeah, okay.
So if you just do nylon, it tends to be a little soft and kind of bendy.
Right.
But with the glass, or for example, carbon fiber in there, filled there, you can print, close to kind of a factory style frame.
Wow.
As long as it's not too brittle, and then as long as you print it at the right temperatures. It's a little bit more fickle in terms of getting the settings right, which is why I think a lot of the more beginner people getting into it, it's a little bit, it's like the next step kind of.
Right.
Just, it's not hard, especially with, for example, like the Bamboo Lab printers, which are really popular now. Those have high temperature nozzles and stuff like that, so you can print that at that higher temperature, because obviously if it's got a higher melting point, you're gonna need to print it. If it's gonna not warp in the car,
right,
it's gonna have to have a higher melting point.
Right.
So you just need the printer to be able to do that. But I've printed plenty of nylon stuff, and it's not too difficult. So
that's what's up.
Yeah,
that's
man.
crazy. So like, okay, let's say I have a Remington 700 action. Would you ever, try to come up with something to?
Well, there's actually a Mossberg 500 design out there by this guy, Print Your 2A, and he sells the kit for it and stuff. I was actually just with him checking it out a couple weeks back.
Okay.
But I think it's still kind of in the design phases. It's still in the beta, kind of getting things figured out with it. But yeah, it's a receiver that's printed. That's Mossberg 500 shotgun, which is pretty cool.
Scariest thing you've ever shot that was printed?
Oh man.
And we're not talking like something that's like 12 gauge or anything. I mean, would you shoot a 12 gauge?
Oh man. Yeah, well, depending on the design. Yeah. If I was confident in that. So the other thing that I'll mention briefly is all of these designs have basically a beta like cycle where they do like an alpha stage where it's just a designer who's testing it, and after the designer tests it, then in a safe way, obviously, and using all the components you need, like metal, obviously, for certain parts. You need to get those. So that what they do is they do a design phase themselves, and then they start sharing beta files if you want to be involved in the beta. But part of being involved in the beta is giving feedback and making sure that you actually put rounds through whatever you got. So that leads to thousands of rounds being put through a design before it's even released publicly. So that's a huge part of the process, and there's a few groups that are very meticulous about that and really serious about making sure these designs have been tested and that it's like as foolproof as possible in terms of the instructions and everything, because each design has a whole PDF dedicated towards like, this is how you build it, this is how you would mess it up if you messed it up, and just wanting to make sure everyone's as safe as possible. Now, as far as the scariest gun I've ever shot, it was actually probably an FGC 9.
Okay.
And it was one that I had. So one of the things, and I think this was honestly probably what was the issue, but what I had an out of battery. I had a couple out of batteries with the FGC 9 that I had printed initially, and what was happening was the round wasn't fully seating inside the chamber. And so, some people I talked to thought it was the firing pin spring, because Jay Stark designed it so that you could use a literal pen or pencil, mechanical pencil spring for the firing pin design, for the firing pin spring, right?
Wow.
Which is, I mean, it's not a gun part. So that's part of, that was the sole, point of that gun, was no gun parts. There's absolutely no gun parts.
That's crazy.
So we were using these springs that were not strong enough. And so it could have been that, it could have been maybe the spec of the barrel or whatever, but the gun, I shot it a couple times, and I had an out of battery, pretty minimal, not too bad, just like it cracked the receiver, but it didn't blow my hand off or anything. I had my hand near the, but it wasn't too bad of an out of battery.
Right.
Then we rebuilt it, and I was like, I don't feel comfortable shooting this. We should test shoot it into this barrel. And I'm glad that I had that inclination, because we put it together, and my buddy Vin and I in his basement, he has a barrel that's like just like because he designs stuff, so he has a test barrel in his basement and whatnot. So we're down there, and I was like, I want to get this on video in case anything happens. And of course, like 3 shots in, the most spectacular out of battery I've ever seen, and it just blew like half the receiver off. And I was like, well, I'm glad that I didn't shoot that with my hands there. And he was fine. He just had his hand on the trigger. It was fine. But that was probably the scariest thing. And other than that, I have an FGC9 now that runs great, because we changed the spring and everything. And I've actually never had a single malfunction with it. It's actually one of the most reliable 3D printing guns I have. So, yeah, man. But I don't know. I've shot a 50 BMG.
What?
It was now, caveat included that it's one of the big Kahuna gun. It's like a upper that you can put on an AR lower.
Okay.
And so the AR lower that it would be that mated to the 50 upper was printed.
Okay.
So nothing, and it's a bolt action, so it's not cycling like a Barrett or anything like that. So it's that one was, it just 50 is crazy, but then knowing that there's plastic, like it's just, it's a bolt action, so the action is locked in there.
Right.
You have to cycle it yourself, so it's not going to be an out of battery with a 50, but still, it's like, oh yeah, this is plastic on the receiver, like kind of interesting. But that was a little bit scary. But my buddy 3D Arms designed that. It's called the Mammoth 50. But yeah, that one was fun. Yeah. I mean, 50's got to be Mammoth. Right.
That's what's up, bro. Yeah. And that's crazy, because like you just think about all these material sciences that come together, man. Necessity is the mother of all inventions, and I just think that's awesome. And you really shine the light on that. And to me, like, bar none, there's no one else in this space who does it as well as you do. So kudos to you for that, for sure.
Thank you, Jason.
Absolutely, brother. And okay, for folks who've never seen this channel, okay, there is an entertainment side to it, and I love it, because like I said, you're given that information. We're kind of diving into that without it being so over someone's head, so you make it palatable. And then you have this aspect where you're showing off like what you can do and a possibility. I would love to see PSR do like a hardcore training class, like full on, like do a full course with like someone, let's say Buck Doyle or Thunder Ranch, and you put one of these things to the test and say, hey, this survived this course where I had to do 1,000 rounds on tap. This is what we're doing. That would be awesome.
That's a great idea, man. Yeah, I think I wonder what Clint Smith would think of the printed guns. I mean, maybe he might be into it. But yeah, I think one of the things I do want to do is I just got done doing a shooting competition in Vegas. Red October. It's a AK specific one. And my buddy Rice Cutta had a plastic off that he ran, and it did great, and no issues at all. He did every stage, did great. So
that's what's up.
That's cool. I do also finish brutality, and I do want to do some other brutality matches as well. But brutality matches are a great way to test your gear, and not just guns, but gear in general, and kind of see where, because if you don't train with your gear, obviously you don't know where the pitfalls of your setup is and everything. Right. So like a brutality match, for example, if you don't go out and, put 1,000 rounds every week through whatever training, you do, a brutality match is a great way to get an idea of like how your setup is working. So it would be really fun. I think I can actually potentially import one of these with my buddy Les, who does all the importing and exporting of guns. As long as it has a serial number on it, I think it could actually happen. So
that'd be dope.
There's a winter brutality, which I'm not sure I'm going to bring and also they have to be rifles, because it's not the Europe it's not Europe that has any issues with it. It's the US. It's like taking out an SPR or whatever, or even a pistol. But yeah, so if I did a rifle plastic off, or actually, there's a gun that's really cool. It's a Amigo Verde. It's a Set Miel.
Okay.
And so it's 5.56, but I actually just recently shot one. You know, one of those, but as long as if I could embed a steel engraving plate in it, I think I could potentially legally export that to do a competition in Europe or something like that.
Begins to crack knuckles.
Yeah, exactly.
Gets ready to fill out State Department stuff.
Yeah. I let Les take care of all this.
That's what's up, bro.
Yeah.
All right. So what's on the horizon for you now in the future? We're saying the next 2 years. What are you aiming for? No pun intended. What are you shooting for? Like, what do you see yourself going?
Great question, man. I have, as you may know, I mean, I'm sure you guys know because you've got a YouTube channel, successful YouTube channel. YouTube has cracked down quite a bit on firearm content. Yeah. Even since I started, I grew exponentially, insane amounts, because I saw, there's not really anyone making 3D printed gun content on YouTube. Like, I would love to be that dude, and that's kind of how I started. And I have a background in, just other, video editing and music and stuff like that. And so I've been, like you said, incorporating the kind of entertainment side into it. And so, YouTube, unfortunately, I've gone through the gauntlet of like feeling I'm just getting absolutely just thrown against the wall by YouTube, unfortunately. And so they now, when I started, it was just, you can't teach people how to build guns on YouTube. That was already in place when I started, which I never have done. Obviously, I don't think that's correct. I think that there should be no restrictions on, that kind of stuff anywhere.
It's educational.
Yeah, it's educational. It's also just, it's the internet. It's like more and more, I guess it's a broader conversation that, rabbit hole, but we're becoming more and more controlled by these corporations trying to prevent what we can, do on the internet and whatnot. However, and what we can say, especially. But the thing with YouTube is, since then they've, made their policy more strict in that now anything with a 3D printed gun in it is age restricted. So I've gone through having my channel on 2 strikes, which is 1 strike away from permanent lifetime personal ban. Yeah. So me, not just PSR channel, but any other channels I might have, banned for life on the YouTube platform. So if they ever found out I was making, they found out I was making like tutorial videos on how to make music or something, and they found out it was me, that's
crazy.
Instant permanent ban. Like, I'd be evading the ban. So it's been real dire at points where I'm just like, and so I actually had to remove a bunch of my content because I was worried that they were going to go back and flag it. And this was during the time when they were like getting rid of a bunch of creators, deleting them. Like my buddy Ivan Kit Badger, he got removed, but then they brought him back because they realized it was, I guess, a mistake. Even
he's got the softest voice known to man.
He's just a great guy. Shouts out to Ivan Kit Badger. He's a good dude. I went. That was during that time, and then like, people just for screwing suppressors on the end of their gun were getting, strikes and stuff. So I was so worried, and I was very close at one point. A few points have been pretty close. So a lot of people just don't understand. Yeah, I'm talking about the gun. I'm not. I'm talking about, this is roller delay blowback inside this gun. This is how it works. Not, this is how you build this gun step by step or anything. So unfortunately, as a result of that, and the age restricted stuff usually gets suppressed on the algorithm and whatnot, I've had to take a little bit of a pivot to doing not just 3D printed stuff, but regular firearm content as well. So I've been doing a lot of that, and I would love to just keep, honestly, for the next 2 years or whatever it is, I'd love to just expand on the operation. I want to put out more music. That's something that I also love to do. I love to test out the new technology that comes out. So I just want to keep doing that stuff. And one of the channels I watched when I was younger is like FPS Russia.
Okay.
And so like I know the ending wasn't so happy for him, unfortunately. No. But like the kind of stuff he did, like I admire the entertainment, the education, and also just the silliness and like absurdity of it. And so, as long as we can maintain our freedoms and stuff, I just want to keep it rolling,
That's
keep people
what's up.
having fun and making good content.
You make great content, brother. And by the way, FPS Richard almost killed himself twice.
Yeah,
The truck one was the worst one. If it wasn't for that extra bounce, it would have
Darwin
clearly,
Award.
yeah, it would have clearly taken his leg.
Very close.
Oh my god. Oh
Yeah.
my god.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So yeah, it's kind of funny like I said, when I look at your content, first of all, I can't wait to see when a video drops because I can't wait for a song. I can't wait for the vibe to come. I can't wait for, like, what are we going to learn today? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just feel like it's another thing. So I love how you're using, like, the stuff on YouTube to try and diversify your platform. And that's really cool. Because, first glance at you, I'm thinking, like, this guy looks like he could be, like, a rave like DJ, like straight up. He was like, "Are you ready for the craziness?" Like something like that. And so I dig that. It resonates with me. It's a cool vibe, and I love what you do. This 2A space is kind of weird. You have a bunch of people who are from the fuddiest of fuds to people who are extremely entitled.
Yes.
And they think they know it all, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's fine. I can play with mommy and daddy's money too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And like, to me, you bridge a gap between like another demographic that nobody would ever think about. So to me, it's all imperative, and I want to stress this to the utmost. It's all imperative that we all come together for the common ground and not hold these gatekeeping places, because without each other, there would be none of us.
Totally.
So you know what I'm saying? It's all or nothing to me. It doesn't matter what you do. If you want to talk about nothing but bolt action guns, and you're just the fuddiest of fud, and you don't care, the best rifle caliber you've ever shot is .308, that's fine and dandy. Or if you want to come into space and say, hey guys, we're talking about printed stuff that I came up with, or that we put together and put to test, or we want to come with even our name, Classic Firearms, surplus stuff, or any of the cool stuff. We're all in it together for a common bond, and that's how it should be, bro.
Agree, man. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, divide and conquer. That's normally how things fall.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. So we've got to come together, because I'm serious. Like you said, all these tech companies who are like binding to, like, literally behind closed doors, saying, hey, we don't want this, we don't want that either. How can we suppress it? And people will come and say, oh, hey, well, why don't we just make our own? If only it was that easy.
I know. It's tough.
And the craziest thing is, it's hard to get the support in a new platform because people are always so leery of it from the jump.
Yeah.
So like, how do you go navigate that? Like, yes, there are places like, Warrior Pro Society, he's got his whole network and everything, but then now, what's to say? John Lovell's an amazing dude, but what's to say, let's say he gets bought out or something, and what stops somebody from now putting the, padlock on, well, we don't want this kind of content versus that kind of content, when it all actually, it should be everything,
It's a slippery slope.
It is. And, power is all of those who behold it. So it depends on where you are on that spectrum, brother.
Complete, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, brother, let me tell you something, man. This has been really cool, because you're a whole vibe, man. First of all, like I said, we're not going to have an admin reveal, so don't ask folks. Even if he did, he'd take it off and there'd be another face mask.
It would be part 2 of the admin reveal, because admin actually did reveal himself.
Oh, that is true.
So that was the first. That was admin reveal number 1. I don't know if I'll ever do the admin.
Will you ever do it?
It's honestly, it's the worst kept secret on the internet. I think most people know who I am. So people try to say my legal name in like the comments and stuff, and I'm just like, they think it's an own or something. But it's literally, I just did it back when I had this wasn't my job.
Right.
I had another job, and I was like, I want to separate the two.
Right.
And then the mask just kind of it stuck. So I don't think I'm ever taking off the mask. Maybe I'll eat my words on that. But yeah, this is here to stay, and yeah, you can go ahead and say my legal name. I'm not too worried about it.
I feel like it should be like a cut scene from like, take off that mask, huh? Just show us who you are, huh?
Hold on. I got a few other underneath this, so you got to take out the layers.
There you go. That's what's up, bro. All right, so come on, SHOT Show's coming around the corner.
SHOT Show, yeah.
We're almost there. We're almost to that grand coup d'etat, the Super Bowl moment.
I know.
In our industry, right? Like
Crazy.
one of them.
Yeah. Everyone's getting ready. Everyone's getting ready for the high stress. It's just as much stress as there during the day in SHOT Show. It's just as much stress blown off in the evening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think for day one, we did 14.2 miles of walking.
Yeah, dude.
Because we have some of the largest SHOT Show coverage in the industry. And run it over here. Oh, I've got to get here. We've got to get here. We had to make sure we get to our guys. Panzer in the studio. I mean there's so many booths, man. And last year was my first SHOT Show.
Yeah.
So I'm coming in with the game plan. I ordered a special pair of On Clouds specifically just for SHOT Show because I made the fatal mistake of wearing Vans.
Oh, dude, I actually had the same exact experience. I wore Vans the first day, and I was like, nah, my feet are just cooked.
I couldn't feel them.
No, I had blisters and all that stuff. I had to buy another pair of shoes, I think, because I was just like, this is not going to work.
Yeah, it's not going to work. Yeah, it's toast. Absolute toast. And these guys are seasoned vets in that area. Nobody sent me the memo.
Yeah, Van's not working.
Thanks, guys. Dickheads. Appreciate it. But yeah, man, we got a whole bunch of stuff planned at SHOT Show. You know what? I feel like we need to do something at SHOT Show.
I'm game. You just let me know what you want to do. I'll be there.
There you go. I feel like we need to set something up, but it's like some
big link up.
Yeah, big link up.
I'm down.
I got some ideas.
All right, we'll talk about them. I'm stoked. Yeah, man. It's a fun time, and it's just cool seeing everyone so passionate about the industry, and when it comes out, like the cool stuff, and some of it never sees the light of day, but it's still cool to see all the prototypes, and there's a lot of 3D printed stuff, and the people. That's actually another funny thing that SHOT Show tried to because there was a group of 3D printer people that had 3D printed guns last time,
right?
And I think SHOT Show had a bad taste in their mouth after that, and they actually banned 3D printed guns that were like
NSSF.
And then I'm like, okay, well, the entire SIG booth, suppressor booth. Sorry, you guys aren't coming then. But then they're
CGS?
like,
what?
No, but they're serialized is okay, or like manufactured ones are okay from a manufacturer. So yeah, NSSF.
What happens when these people who are doing that now create an entity and then want to make serialized portions?
Yeah. I think they're allowing that, but I guess if you did a DIY one and then you came in with a group or something and you bought a booth and you were showcasing DIY ones, then that's against their policy.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess
God.
I know. Scary stuff, and that's the thing. Is just like just like I was saying before, that's kind of its own FUD lore. People have like really technical dudes who love firearms.
Right.
Have a bit of a FUD lore sometimes thing about printed guns, and then they're just like, they might be super knowledgeable, but then when it comes to printed guns, they're just like, nah, that's a bunch of plastic crap.
So what do you think perpetuates it? It's just lack of knowledge, right?
I think it's lack of knowledge, but I think there may be some merit to them not seeing the point of it. I guess because they think, oh, well, you still need gun parts and stuff like that. I get that, but the cool thing about 3D printing, one of the coolest things in my opinion, obviously, is this sense of accomplishment of building something right with your hands. That's cool. And anyone who's built an AR or whatever knows it's fun to put piece the thing together. Put the gas block on, put the barrel in the receiver, and all that stuff. It's great. It's a fun accomplishment when you get done with it, especially the first one. It's really neat.
Right.
And then this is just the 3D printed stuff is like taken to that next level of like building something.
Right.
But the cool thing about the 3D printed stuff is I can literally print a 8-bit Hello Kitty Glock that I cannot buy. You can't buy this frame.
Tokyo special.
Yeah, exactly. You can't buy this, and the only way you can acquire this, and that,
right,
is to make it yourself, and that's the coolest part to me about it.
The unobtainium factor.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
Yeah, man.
That's what's up. Well, brother, we appreciate you for being on here, man. You've opened our eyes into everything that is PLA.
Yes, exactly.
And everything that's going on. And there's some neat designs and stuff that's out there. And, bro, we thank you for so much for coming by.
Appreciate it, man.
Absolutely, bro. Guys, again, appreciate you.
Thanks for watching.
And we'll see you later.